This FireTEAM Study Guide is for aspiring American and Canadian firefighters who are preparing for the FireTEAM Test administered by the National Testing Network, or the NTN. My name is Luann, and I own Smart Tutoring and Test Preparation Services. I'm an experienced professor and learning strategist at the post-secondary level, and I have been working with aspiring firefighters since 2012. My goal today is to help you best prepare for the FireTEAM Test because I know the content is limited in terms of study materials, and I want you to be able to put your best foot forward. If you know someone who is an aspiring firefighter and who is going to be writing the FireTEAM Test, I do encourage you to share this information with them. And if you have not already, please go back and watch the rest of the FireTEAM Test videos, as this is video 4 in the FireTEAM Test Preparation video series. I'm going to give you some general FireTEAM Test tips, and then we will move into specific FireTEAM Study Guide content. The FireTEAM Test is an American test, so use American firefighter test preparation materials. I have gone through some of the materials, and these are the materials that I would recommend. First and foremost, there are FireTEAM practice tests available to you on ergopracticetest.com. So the Ergometrics company is the company that created the test. They provide the practice tests. I would not go into a FireTEAM test without first at least attempting a practice test. They are new to us in Canada in terms of writing video tests and not doing calculations on paper. So this is something that you want to go in best prepared for, and there's no other type of content on the market that is as similar to what you see in the FireTEAM test than the actual practice test that the company provides. Second to the FireTEAM practice tests, I recommend that you pick up a copy of the Firefighter Candidate Exams text by Barron's. This is what that book looks like. If you're Canadian, be mindful here because Barron's makes a firefighter Canadian exams guide. Don't get that book. Get this book instead. This is the American copy, Firefighter Candidate Exams. Now, there are not FireTEAM specific questions in this book, but it will give you a good perspective on the theory and on the testing format itself. So I would recommend picking that up and then transferring the information over and apply it to the questions that you'll see on the FireTEAM test. The last study guide that I recommend is the Norman Hall's Firefighter Exam Preparation book. You can get the textbook or you can get the flashcards. Norman Hall, again, is an American firefighter test preparation book, which is what you're going to need because they test on different concepts like tools and science, and even the American firefighter personality is different than ours, and how they work within a fire department is a little bit different than what we do here in Canada. So just make sure that you're working with American test preparation materials. Definitely get the FireTEAM practice tests, and then pick yourself up an American book to work through and understand the theory, the types of questions you'll be seeing that are different than ours, and also to get a better understanding of the format of the test. My next tip is to review the answers on the FireTEAM practice tests to better understand the test expectations. This is really important. You only get 2 attempts on your firefighter practice tests, so make sure that you're using the full practice test to your benefit. Don't just do the questions. Understand why the questions are correct and for what reasons, and understand if you get a question wrong, why that is. Every question comes with detailed explanations, which is an excellent tool for you, so take advantage of that. My next tip is to understand the American firefighter personality and its characteristics. These are key to the FireTEAM tests. These are considered dimensions that are evaluated separately throughout the FireTEAM test. So you will need to know these inside out and answer questions based on that type of personality and its characteristics. I'm going to go through this in greater detail with you in a future video. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, and that way you will get the information you need in that regard. Lastly, as a general tip, stay alert and pay attention to the details of the tests. There are visual cues you must watch and verbal cues that you must listen for over an extended period of time. You don't have the opportunity to go back and watch something again. And in this case, you won't have the time to check out mentally. This is something that you need to stay alert for throughout the entire test, and be aware that the information is given to you through different modalities. Okay, so a question could be showing you something visually, but on top of the visuals, it could be telling you something. So you have to be aware of those two elements, because oftentimes they work together to create a question. And if you check out, you might miss something and then absolutely not be able to answer that question. So do make sure you practice for an extended 2-hour time, and that you are ready to sit and work for 2 hours mentally, because this is what they're asking you for. We'll now get into the specific FireTEAM testing components. And in this, I'm going to give you a bit of a study guide. If this is something that you struggle with afterwards, definitely book a tutoring session with me, and we can work through it together. I can be found at smarttutoring.ca. Now, I've got 3 tips for you for the FireTEAM Human Relations video test. The first is only rely on the verbal and visual information given. Don't overthink these questions, and don't add any information in. If they want you to consider it, the information will be provided. Second tip is to demonstrate excellent interpersonal skills and an ability to work with people. If you haven't yet, go back and watch the FireTEAM Human Relations videos in this series. I have touched on the personal characteristics already. Those are key to passing this test. And if you don't know what they are, you will need to study them and then practice answering questions that best demonstrate those personal characteristics. Lastly, demonstrate teamwork. Your superiors are part of your team, and you have to understand that you need to work together. So sometimes I see recruits talk about questions as if they are brown noser questions or tattletale questions. I think that's the wrong mindset to go into this test with, and ultimately to go into the fire department with. Your superiors are part of your team, and their job is to ensure that they can operate the department fluently. And if someone is causing a problem for them to not be able to do that, then as a teammate, it needs to be brought to their attention so that they can address it and do their job. You're not separated in terms of being a firefighter or being a superior to a firefighter. And I think that you need to keep that in mind when you're answering the human relations test questions. The next FireTEAM test tip I have for you is in the mechanical reasoning section. The first tip is to pay attention to the detailed introduction of the brickmaking factory and its normal operation. You will only see this video once, so it's similar to the oral comprehension component on a CPS test. If you check out mentally during that video, you're not going to be able to answer questions. So you have to pay attention to the introduction and the details that are provided on the brickmaking factory. The second tip I have for you is to increase your eye span. So when you're watching the video scenarios, you're going to be asked to troubleshoot what part of the brick making factory is not working. And I don't want you to focus in on the center of the video. Instead, I want you to expand your eyesight and scan the screen in a Z-shaped pattern so that you don't miss anything. Lastly, play memory games to assist your ability to recall information. You do have some mechanical questions that will rely on your mechanical understanding, but a large part of the brick making factory questions are based on your memory. So do please make sure that you are improving your memory skills in addition to your mechanical understanding. Next up, we have the reading section in the FireTEAM test. I have 3 tips for you in this component. The first tip is to look at what comes before and after the word drop-down box. So if you haven't seen the previous FireTEAM videos, I do recommend that you go back and watch them. In one of them, I talked about how the question is set up. So the reading section of the FireTEAM test is not like a general reading comprehension section. Normally, we read passages and answer questions on the passages. It's not like that at all. It's more like a writing ability section in an FPSI test. So you will be reading sentences, and then in a sentence, there will be a drop-down box that replaces a word, and you have to choose the correct word of the 4 that are provided. So to do that correctly and efficiently, I encourage you to read and remember what you read, but also read ahead a little bit so you understand what's coming next. Okay, so look at what comes before and after the word drop box before you choose the right word. Play games to improve your vocabulary. This is definitely a vocabulary type of test in terms of being able to understand the meaning of words and the correct spelling of words. And then lastly, read fire-related materials. This could be your IFSTA 7 book or your Firefighter Essentials Guide. This could be the theory found in your firefighter test preparation materials. This could be even it could be magazines, fire-related magazines, because that's the type of content that you're going to be given. So you might as well get used to reading it and the jargon that comes along with it. The next section that we're going to review is the FireTEAM math test. I've got 3 tips for you here as well. First, study your multiplication facts. If you don't know your multiplication facts, you will be underprepared. You'll be asked questions that involve adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. If you don't know how to multiply, it can be argued that you don't know how to add or divide for that matter. So to get the best bang out of your buck, make sure you are multiplying on a regular basis and that you have your multiplication facts memorized before you go into your FireTEAM test. I encourage you to play mental math games, as many as you can. You can download an app, you can get actual games online, you could probably get games that are relevant to mental math in a board game format. You will not be permitted to use pen and paper to do your calculations, and this is simple math. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, okay? So I would encourage you to play mental math. I think one of the challenges here is the questions do not give you a lot of time to come up with the answers, and the best way you can combat that is by practicing. So study your multiplication and start playing mental math games, because if you're not able to get the answer in the appropriate amount of time, then you're behind the 8 ball. Okay, and lastly, to assist you in getting the answer quicker, start to practice using estimation. And if you don't know how to do that, set up a tutoring session with me at smarttutoring.ca and we can work through this together. The math section is not like any other math section you've seen on other tests, like the CPS test or the FACT test, the NFST test. It's not like that at all. You're not working on percents or decimals or fractions. This is basic mental math. So make sure that you're practicing that in your head and then get prepared to answer questions in a very quick manner. The last section of the FireTEAM test we're going to cover is your time management. So, first of all, if the timer is an issue for you, I encourage you to use a sticky note and just cover the clock. And I'm going to argue that you're wasting time by looking at that clock. So I want you to be better prepared, because if you are more prepared to take on this type of test, the clock is not going to agitate you. But if you're not ready for this test, then any part of it is going to agitate you. So understand that the videos are non-stop. So once they start, you're not able to stop them. You're not able to go back. You have to stay alert to receive the content in order to answer the question, and then you need to come up with an answer very quickly. All of this takes time to prepare for, so give yourself a long runway and get ready for this type of test. If you are an aspiring American or Canadian firefighter who is preparing for the FireTEAM video, I do encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm going to come back and answer the question, what is a good score on the FireTEAM test? And I know you're not going to want to miss that. And if you're new here, go back in the FireTEAM test series and watch the previous videos to get the most out of this series. My name is Luann. I own Smart Tutoring and Test Preparation Services. I can be found online at smarttutoring.ca. Thank you very much for being here. Have a smart day.